Admiral Hyunwoo stepped into the massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council's meeting hall was bigger than most Earth cities. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that surrounded the central speaking area. Their eyes, sensors, and other weird body parts all focused on him as he walked to the center. The human admiral wore his simple gray uniform. It looked plain next to the fancy robes and armor of the alien council members. The Veilthrans had shells like giant crabs and stood 3 meters tall. The luminari floated in balls of bright light. Dozens of other species filled the chamber, with strange sounds, smells, and movements. Ambassador Sojin stood behind Hyunwoo. She had been Earth's voice in this place for 10 years. Her job was to translate not just words but meanings between humans and aliens. Today, her face was serious. She knew what was coming. Council members, Hyunwoo began. His voice carried through the chamber's translation systems. Earth requests an emergency session to discuss the Veilthran Empire's recent announcement. A massive Veilthran named Thekvor rose from his platform. His shell was covered in battle scars and metal decorations. The Empire's business is not subject to human approval, Admiral. We are cleansing inferior species from our territory. This is our right. Murmurs filled the chamber. The Keth delegate, a small furry being named Pipka, shook with fear. Her people lived in the Outer Rim colonies that the Veilthrans wanted to destroy. Please, she whispered. My people have done nothing wrong. We just want to live in peace. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. For 30 years, Earth had kept peace in this galaxy. Human ships patrolled the borders. Human soldiers stopped wars before they started. Human diplomats solved problems that should have been easy for civilizations thousands of years old. Council members, Hyunwoo said again, Earth has served as peacekeepers for 3 decades. We have stopped 17 wars. We have prevented 6 genocides. We have done this while following every rule you created. We used non-lethal weapons when possible. We avoided civilian targets. We showed mercy even to those who showed none to others. The Zenthari Trademaster, a being that looked like a walking tree, made clicking sounds. Yes, yes. Humans are very gentle, very careful, very limited. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Many council members had made jokes about human weakness over the years. They saw Earth's careful approach as proof that humans were not true warriors. But, Hyunwoo continued, we did this by choice. We held back our true capabilities because we hoped this galaxy could learn to be peaceful. We hoped ancient civilizations could be wiser than a young species like humanity. The laughter stopped. Something in the Admiral's voice had changed. The Veilthran Empire plans to kill 12 billion Keth civilians. They call it cleansing. We call it genocide. If this council allows this to happen, Earth will no longer hold back. Thekvor slammed his massive claws on his platform. Human threats do not frighten the Empire. Your tiny ships and soft weapons are no match for Veilthran might. They are not threats, Hyunwoo said quietly. They are warnings. Sojin stepped forward. She had translated thousands of conversations between humans and aliens. She knew how to make words carry the right weight. Admiral Hyunwoo speaks truth. For 30 years, humanity has fought with one hand tied behind its back. We have weapons you have never seen. We have tactics you cannot imagine. We have capabilities we have never used because we hoped we would never need them. High above the chamber, Captain Minho watched from his ship's bridge. The silent wind was a human stealth vessel, invisible to alien sensors. His crew monitored every communication in the system. Sergeant Yoonji stood beside him, reading reports from her reconnaissance team. Captain, Yoonji said, Veilthran death fleets are moving toward Keth space. 50 ships, all armed for bombardment. They will reach the first colony in 6 hours. Minho nodded. He had expected this. The Veilthrans never made empty threats. They were already moving to destroy the Keth before the council could stop them. Back in the chamber, other council members began to speak. The Makrani delegate, a proud warrior with 4 arms, stood up. The Veilthrans have the right to expand. Their territory. Weak species should make room for strong ones. The Althari representative, an ancient being with wise eyes, shook her head. This is not expansion. This is murder. The Keth have done nothing to deserve death. They exist in space we want, Thekvor replied. That is enough. The vote began. Each species cast their decision on holographic displays. Earth watched as civilization after civilization chose to allow genocide. Some voted yes because they hated the Keth. Others voted yes because they feared the Veilthrons. Many voted yes because they simply did not care about a small, weak species. When the counting finished, the result was clear. The Galactic Council had voted to allow the Veilthron purification campaign. 12 billion innocent lives had been traded away for political convenience. Hyunwoo stood in the center of the chamber as the council members celebrated or argued. His face showed no emotion. Sojin watched him carefully. She had seen that look before, during the worst moments of the border wars. Council members, the Admiral said one final time. His voice cut through all other sounds. The chamber fell silent. Earth warned you. We told you what would happen if you chose genocide over justice. You have made your choice. He turned to leave, then stopped. You wanted to see what humanity looks like without restraint. You refused our mercy and called it weakness. You ignored our warnings and called them empty threats. The Admiral's eyes swept across the thousands of alien beings in the chamber. Now you will learn the difference between humans who choose to be gentle and humans who choose to be terrible. As Hyunwoo and Sojin walked out of the chamber, Minho received new orders on his ship. All across human space, military commanders got the same message. The rules of engagement had changed. 30 years of careful peacekeeping were over. The galaxy had been warned. The galaxy had chosen war. Now the galaxy would face humanity unleashed. The first thing that shocked the galaxy was the size of humanity's real fleet. For 30 years, aliens had only seen Earth's peacekeeping ships. These were small, lightly armed vessels designed to stop fights without causing too much damage. The galaxy thought this was all humanity had. They were wrong. Admiral Tae-young stood on the bridge of the Unbowed. The massive ship was so large it had its own gravity field. Its hull was covered in weapons that no alien had ever seen before. The Unbowed was just one of 50 dreadnoughts that emerged from hidden bases throughout human space. Sir, reported Lieutenant Yu-jin from her weapon station, all Nova cannons are ready. Swarm missile systems are online. Kinetic bombardment platforms are locked and loaded. Tae-young nodded. These weapons had been built over 30 years of pretending to be peaceful. While aliens thought humans were weak, Earth's engineers had been designing tools of total war. They had studied every alien species, every ship design, every defensive system in the galaxy. Now they would use that knowledge. Colonel Da-yoon commanded the 7th Assault Fleet from her flagship, the Hammer of Justice. Her ships were sleek and deadly, built for speed and overwhelming firepower. They had trained for this day in secret, practicing maneuvers that other species thought impossible. All ships, this is Da-yoon, she broadcast to her fleet. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. The Veilthrons chose genocide. We choose justice. Her ships moved through space like hunting wolves. Their engines were silent, their hulls nearly invisible to sensors. This was technology that humanity had kept hidden while playing the role of gentle peacekeepers. The Veilthron First Armada was the pride of their empire. 200 warships, each one covered in thick armor and bristling with plasma cannons. They had won 1,000 battles across the galaxy. Their commander, War Master Gekthul, had never lost a fight. Today would be different. Commodore Ji-hoon's squadron appeared without warning near the Keth homeworld. His 12 ships looked tiny compared to the massive Veilthron fleet. Gekthul laughed when he saw them on his screens. Foolish humans, the Veilthron commander growled. 12 ships against 200. They come to die with honor. He was still, laughing when the first Nova cannon fired. The weapon tore a hole in space itself. Reality twisted and bent around the beam of pure energy. When it hit the Veilthron flagship, the massive ship simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, the next moment there was only empty space. The laughter stopped. All ships, attack! Gekthal screamed. The Valthran fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled space like a deadly light show. But the human ships moved like ghosts, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Lieutenant Yujin worked her controls with perfect precision. The righteous fury spun and twisted through the enemy fire, its weapons tracking multiple targets at once. "Swarm missiles away," she reported calmly. The missiles spread out like a cloud of angry insects. Each one had its own brain, able to think and adapt during flight. When Valthran ships tried to shoot them down, the missiles learned from each attack and changed their approach. They slipped through the thickest defenses like they were not even there. Captain Minho watched the battle from the silent wind. His stealth ship was invisible to the Valthrans, but he could see everything. "Count the ships," he told Sergeant Hyunji. "Valthran fleet is down to 150 ships," she reported. "Now 120, now 90. The battle was not even close. Human ships moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible. Their weapons hit with perfect accuracy. Their defenses stopped attacks that should have destroyed them. But the most terrifying thing was not their technology. It was their tactics. The Valthrans fought like proud warriors, each ship trying to win glory in single combat. The humans fought like a single organism. When one ship was threatened, 3 others appeared to help. When the enemy tried to retreat, human ships were already waiting for them. This was how humanity had always fought their wars. Not as individuals seeking glory, but as a coordinated force working toward total victory. They had learned this lesson through thousands of years of fighting each other on Earth. War Master Gektul found himself alone on his bridge. All his officers were dead, killed when a human missile had somehow passed through their shields and exploded inside the ship. Half his fleet was gone. The other half was running away. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are just humans. Just a young species with primitive technology." Commodore Ji-hoon's voice came through the communication system. "War Master, you are ordered to surrender immediately." "Never," Gekthul roared. "The Empire does not surrender to inferior beings. Then you die," Ji-hoon replied simply. The final Nova Cannon blast ended the First Armada. When the light faded, there was nothing left but space dust and radiation. 200 of the galaxy's most powerful warships had been destroyed in less than 6 hours. On the Keith homeworld, 12 billion people watched the battle through their telescopes and sensors. They had expected to die today, murdered by Valthran weapons. Instead, they watched humanity save them with a display of power that seemed like magic. Elder Saknu, the oldest Keth on the planet, wept as she watched the human ships form a protective formation around their world. "They kept their promise," she whispered. The humans kept their promise. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Species that had dismissed humanity as weak scrambled to understand what they had just witnessed. This Galactic Council met in emergency session, demanding explanations that no one could give. Admiral Tae-young received reports from across human space. Other alien fleets that had been moving to support the Valthrans were surrendering without a fight. Some were trying to return to their home systems, hoping to avoid humanity's anger. It was too late for that. "Begin Phase 2, Tae-young ordered. All across the galaxy, human fleets that had been hidden for 30 years began to move. They had targets that had been chosen years ago. Every species that had voted for genocide, every government that had supported the Valthrans, every system that had helped plan the extinction of the Keth. The galaxy had seen what humanity looked like when they held back. Now they would learn what humanity looked like when they decided to win. The age of human restraint was over. The age of consequences had begun. The Galactic Council tried to meet in emergency session, but half their members were already dead or running for their lives. Those who remained sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The humans were not just winning battles. They were rewriting the rules of war itself. Major Sung-min led the orbital bombardment of Valthran Prime, the heart of their empire. His ships hung in space above the planet like metal gods, their weapons pointed down at the cities below. But this was not the careful, precise strikes that humans had used during peacekeeping missions. This was total war. All civilian areas are clear, reported his aide, Lieutenant Jae Sung. Population has been evacuated to the southern continent. Sung Min nodded. Even in total war, humans followed certain rules. They did not murder innocents. But military targets, industrial centers, and government buildings were completely fair game. Begin bombardment, he ordered. The kinetic weapons fell from space like hammers of the gods. They were not explosive. They did not need to be. When a metal rod traveling at a significant fraction of light speed hits a planet, the impact releases more energy than nuclear weapons. The Velthron military bases, weapons factories, and government centers simply vanished, leaving perfectly round craters in the ground. Captain Haiwan led her Marines down to the planet's surface to secure what remained. Her soldiers moved through the ruined cities with mechanical precision. They had trained for urban warfare on 100 different worlds, learning how to fight in any environment against any enemy. Building secured, reported Sergeant Daeho from the former Valthron Command Center. All military personnel captured or eliminated, no civilian casualties. This was the human way of war. They did not fight to cause suffering. They fought to achieve total victory. Every shot was calculated. Every move was planned. Every action served the goal of ending the war as quickly as possible. The Luminari Collective had thought their energy-based defenses would protect them. They were wrong. Fleet Admiral Jae Min had spent years studying their technology, looking for weaknesses that no other species had ever found. Fire the null torpedoes, he ordered from his flagship, the Inevitable. Diwaing. Weapons passed through the Luminari energy shields like they were not even there. Each torpedo contained a small piece of technology that humanity had developed in secret. A field generator that canceled out energy patterns. When they exploded inside Luminari ships, the beings of pure light found themselves trapped in bodies of solid matter. This is impossible, broadcast Admiral Valthara of the Luminari fleet. Our defenses have protected us for 1,000 years. Your defenses were designed to stop energy weapons, Jamin replied calmly. We did not use energy weapons. The Luminari fleet surrendered within an hour. They had no choice. Their ships were designed around energy manipulation. Without their natural abilities, they were helpless. But the most terrifying human weapon was not any piece of technology. It was Dr. Su Young's biological warfare program. The doctor worked from her laboratory aboard the medical ship New Hope. Her target was not to kill, but to disable. She had created a virus that would affect only adult male Valthrons of military age. The virus would not harm children, elderly, or females. It would not even kill the soldiers it infected. It would just make them too sick to fight. Release the pathogen over all Valthron military worlds, she ordered her team. Make sure the antidote is ready for distribution once they surrender. This was mercy that the Valthrons had never shown their enemies. When they conquered a world, they killed everyone. When humans conquered a world, they made it impossible for anyone to want to fight them again. General Dong Hyuk demonstrated this principle on the ground. His troops moved through Valthran territory like a force of nature. They did not just defeat enemy armies, they destroyed the will to resist. Sir, reported Colonel Minsu, the 15th Valthran Division is requesting permission to surrender. Accepted, Dong Hyuk replied. Disarm them, give them medical treatment, and send them home. Make sure they tell everyone what they saw here. This was psychological warfare at its finest. Every Valthron soldier who survived a battle with humans would return home with stories of impossible human tactics, unstoppable human weapons, and unexpected human mercy. Fear and confusion spread through the enemy ranks faster than any virus. The Zenthari Merchant Guild had profited from every war in the galaxy for centuries. They sold weapons to both sides, medical supplies to treat the wounded, and ships to replace the destroyed. War was their business. Admiral Kyung-soo made it clear that their business was now closed. All Zenthari trade routes are hereby blockaded, he announced from his command ship. Any vessel attempting to carry weapons, military supplies, or strategic. Materials will be seized. The Zenthari trademaster, a being called Corvex, tried to protest. This is illegal. We are neutral merchants. We have rights under galactic law. Galactic law was suspended when the council voted for genocide, Kyung-Soo replied. You profited from mass murder. Now you face the consequences. Human ships appeared at every major trade station in Zenthari space. They were not there to destroy. They were there to take control. Within days, the merchant empire that had existed for thousands of years was under complete human management. The Macrani hegemony had laughed at human tactics during the peacekeeping years. They called human soldiers soft and human strategies primitive. They prided themselves on being the galaxy's greatest warriors. Commander Bo Young showed them what real warriors looked like. Her hunter-killer squadrons moved through Macrani space like shadows. They struck without warning, disappeared before counterattacks could be organized, and hit again from a completely different direction. The proud Macrani warriors found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not defeat. Where are they? Screamed War Chief Bakmore from his flagship. How can 12 human ships defeat 300 Macrani vessels? The answer was simple. The Macrani fought for glory and honor. The humans fought to win. When glory conflicted with victory, humans chose victory every time. Bo Young's ships used every dirty trick that humanity had learned during thousands of years of war on Earth. They hit supply lines instead of battle fleets. They targeted communications instead of weapons. They made it impossible for the enemy to organize a defense. Macrani fleet is in full retreat, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Seok Jin. They are requesting safe passage to their home system. Denied, Bo Young replied. They wanted to see primitive human tactics. Now they can experience them firsthand. The galaxy watched in horror as one civilization after another fell to human forces. These were not random attacks. Every target had been chosen carefully. Every species that suffered had voted to allow genocide. Every government that faced destruction had chosen murder over justice. President In-sung addressed the remaining members of the Galactic Council from the bridge of his new flagship, a mobile fortress called Final Warning. The ship was so large, it could carry an entire fleet inside its hull. Its weapons could destroy planets, its shields could stop anything the galaxy could throw at it. You wanted to see humanity without restraint, he said calmly. You called our mercy weakness. You called our precision inability. You claimed our peacekeeping was the limit of our power. Behind him, holographic displays showed the systematic defeat of every empire that had supported the Velthran genocide. Worlds conquered, fleets destroyed, governments replaced. All of it accomplished in less than a month. We gave you 30 years of gentle guidance, In-sung continued. We hoped ancient civilizations could learn wisdom. We believed that species older than ours could choose peace over violence. The surviving council members sat in terrified silence. Many of them had not even voted on the genocide question. They had simply been absent or abstained or thought the issue was not important enough to worry about. Now they understood their mistake. The age of human restraint is over, In-sung announced. The age of human dominance has begun. You will follow our laws or you will join the Velthrons in extinction. Captain Mi-young reported from the siege of the Council's military headquarters on Nexus Prime. All defenses have fallen, sir. The facility is under our control. No casualties among our forces. The galaxy's oldest and most powerful military installation had fallen to human forces without a fight. The defenders had simply looked at what happened to everyone else who had fought humanity and decided that surrender was the better option. The new rules were simple. No more genocide. No more wars of conquest. No more profiting from suffering. Anyone who broke these rules would face the full might of human military power. And as the galaxy had learned, that was not a force that could be stopped. The Velthran Empire died exactly 31 days after the Galactic Council voted to allow genocide. What had once been 3 star systems full of proud warriors was now empty space and memorial beacons warning others about the price of choosing murder over mercy. But humanity was not finished. The species that had laughed at human warnings, the governments that had dismissed human capabilities, the civilizations that had voted for genocide. They all learned that contempt carried a terrible cost. Admiral Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Zenthari trade ships flee in every direction. For 1,000 years, the Zenthari had been the galaxy's merchants. They sold weapons to anyone with credits, supplied both sides of every war, and grew rich from the suffering of others. "Sir," reported Captain Yoon Seo, "the last Zenthari trade station has surrendered. Their entire commercial network is now under our control." Kyung-soo nodded. The Zenthari had made their fortune by selling the tools of war while pretending to be neutral. They had supplied the weapons that the Velthrons planned to use for genocide. Now their merchant empire belonged to humanity. "What are your orders for the Zenthari homeworld?" asked Lieutenant Han Sol. "Quarantine," Kyung-soo replied. "No ships, in or out. No trade, no communication, no contact with the outside galaxy. They wanted to profit from isolation and suffering. Now they can experience both." The Zenthari homeworld had 40 billion inhabitants. They had lived in luxury for centuries, enjoying the wealth that came from arms dealing and war profiteering. Now they found themselves cut off from the galaxy they had helped tear apart. Trademaster Korvek sent desperate messages to every remaining government in the galaxy. "Please," he begged, "we are just merchants. We only sold what others wanted to buy. We never forced anyone to start wars." No one answered. The surviving species had learned that helping humanity's enemies was not a wise choice. Commander Bo Young led the hunt for the last Macrani warriors. The proud hegemony had boasted that they were the galaxy's greatest fighters. They had claimed that their warrior culture made them superior to soft humans who used primitive tactics. Now they hid in asteroid fields and abandoned systems, running from human forces like scared children. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported Ensign Taeho from his station. "Macrani cruiser trying to reach the galactic rim. Intercept," Bo Young ordered. Her ship, the Relentless, moved through space like a hunting shark. Its stealth systems made it nearly invisible. Its weapons could destroy targets from ranges that most species considered impossible. The Macrani cruiser tried to fight. Its crew fired their plasma cannons and launched their missiles with desperate courage. But courage without skill was just another way to die. "Target disabled," reported Weapons Officer Jung Woo. "Shall we take prisoners?" Bo Young considered this. The Macrani had voted for genocide. They had laughed at human warnings. They had called humanity weak and primitive. But they had also fought with honor even in defeat. "Take them aboard," she decided. "Give them medical treatment and a choice. They can return to their homeworld to face justice, or they can join our military and help enforce the new galactic order." This was the difference between humanity and their enemies. Even in total war, humans offered chances for redemption. The Velthrons had offered only death. The Zenthari had offered only exploitation. The Macrani had offered only domination. Humanity offered a future. The Luminary Collective had been one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, beings of pure energy who claimed to be above the concerns of physical species. They had voted for genocide because they considered the Keth to be inferior matter-based life forms. Now they learned what it felt like to be considered inferior. Dr. Subin worked in her laboratory aboard the research vessel New Dawn. She had spent weeks studying captured luminary technology, looking for ways to help these energy beings adapt to their new situation. "The null field generators are working perfectly," she reported to Fleet Admiral Jae-min. "The luminary can maintain physical form for up to 6 hours at a time before needing to return to energy state." "And their attitude?" Jae-min asked. "Improving," Subin replied with a small smile. "Being forced to experience physical existence has given them new respect for matter-based life. They are beginning to understand that consciousness is not determined by the type of body that contains it. The Luminari had not been destroyed like the Velthrons. Instead, they had been changed. Their energy-based technology was now under human control. Their star systems were managed by human administrators, but individual Luminari who accepted the new order were allowed to continue their research and exploration, guided by human oversight. Some of them were even beginning to appreciate the experience. Admiral Velthara, former commander of the Luminari fleet, now worked as a science advisor to human forces. She had spent 2 weeks in physical form, learning what it meant to taste food, feel warmth, and experience touch. "I never understood," she admitted to Dr. Subin. "We thought consciousness was superior when it was pure energy. We did not realize that every form of awareness has its own gifts." President In-sung received daily reports from across the galaxy. The human military machine was working with terrifying efficiency. Every species that had supported genocide was being systematically dismantled. But this was not random destruction. It was careful, planned reconstruction. "The Thrakari Federation has agreed to our terms," reported Foreign Minister Do Hyun. "They will dismantle their weapons programs and accept human oversight of their government." "And the Velkan Union?" In-sung asked, still resisting. "Their leaders claim they have rights under the old galactic constitution." In-sung nodded. "Remind them that the old constitution died when they voted to allow 12 billion murders. The new constitution is simple: follow human law or face human justice." Captain Mi-young commanded the siege forces around Nexus Prime. The former capital of the Galactic Council was now surrounded by human ships, cut off from all outside contact. The surviving council members inside sent message after message, demanding negotiations, offering compromises, begging for mercy. "Sir," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Kyung-ho, "the Nexus Defense Force is requesting permission to surrender." "Accepted," Mi-young replied. "Standard terms: full disarmament, acceptance of human authority, cooperation with war crimes investigations." The galaxy's most powerful military force had chosen surrender over destruction. They had seen what happened to those who fought humanity. They had learned that human weapons could destroy anything, human tactics could defeat anyone, and human patience had limits. Those limits had been reached. The Althari were one of the few species that had opposed the genocide vote. Elder Su-ran had argued passionately against the Velthran plan, warning the Council that allowing mass murder would destroy galactic civilization. She had been right. Now she met with Admiral Hyunwoo aboard his flagship, the Justice Restored. The ship's name was a promise that humanity intended to keep. "The galaxy has changed," Su-ran said sadly. "So much destruction, so much fear." "The galaxy chose this," Hyunwoo replied. "We warned them. We gave them 30 years to learn wisdom. They chose contempt instead. And now they learn the consequences of their choice. The species that voted for genocide are gone or under direct human control. The governments that supported mass murder have been replaced. The civilizations that profited from war are being reformed." Su-ran looked out at the stars through the ship's viewports. "What about those of us who tried to do the right thing?" "You will help us build something better," Hyunwoo promised. "The new galactic order will not be based on the power of the strongest or the greed of the richest. It will be based on justice, protection of the innocent, and the prevention of genocide." "And if someone refuses to accept this new order?" Hyunwoo's expression became cold. "Then they will join the Velthrans in extinction. The galaxy has seen what we are capable of. They know we are not bluffing." Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The age of committee rule was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Species could accept the new order and thrive under human protection, or they could resist and face the consequences. Most chose wisely. The few who did not became object lessons for the rest. The galaxy had dismissed human warnings as empty threats. They had called human restraint a sign of weakness. They had voted for genocide because they thought no one could stop them. They had been wrong about everything. Now they paid the price for their contempt. 6 months after the Galactic Council voted to ignore humanity's warning, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Where once there had been endless committees and meaningless debates, now there was order. Where once there had been wars and genocide, now there was peace. Where once there had been chaos, now there was human law. Fleet Admiral Wu Jin oversaw the construction of humanity's new governing stations throughout the galaxy. Unlike the old council building on Nexus Prime, these stations were not built for show. They were functional, efficient, and defended by weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Status report, he requested from his command center aboard the Ya orbital platform above New Geneva, humanity's new galactic capital. All primary stations are operational, reported Admiral Songmi. Secondary stations will be complete within 2 months. Every inhabited system now has human oversight. The new government was simple and effective. Each system had a human governor, supported by local administrators chosen from the native population. Laws were clear and easy to understand. Justice was swift and fair. Appeals were heard, but decisions were final. Most importantly, there was no committee that could vote to allow genocide. That power now belonged to humanity alone, and humanity had already proven they would never use it. The Keth thrived under human protection. Ambassador Yuna worked with Elder Pipka to establish new colonies throughout the galaxy. The small furry beings who had nearly been exterminated were now spreading to dozens of worlds, all defended by human fleets. The Keth birth rate has increased by 40%, Yuna reported during the weekly briefing. Their population will recover from pre-war levels within a generation. And their attitude toward humanity? Asked Governor Chang Wu. Gratitude, but also independence, Yuna replied. They know we saved them, but they want to build their own future. We are helping them develop their own defense forces and governing systems. This was the human way. Protection, not domination. Guidance, not control. The species that accepted human law were allowed to govern themselves as long as they followed the basic rules. No genocide, no wars of conquest, no profiting from suffering. Most species found these rules easy to follow. The key, former council species who had remained neutral during the genocide crisis found themselves partners in humanity's new order. The wise Althari, who had argued against the Velthron plan, now served as humanity's diplomatic corps. Minister Seung-ho met with Elder Suran in the gardens of New Geneva Station. The artificial world was beautiful, designed to be a symbol of what the galaxy could become when war was no longer the dominant force in civilization. The transition is going well, Suran reported. Most species are adapting to the new legal system. Trade is recovering. Scientific cooperation has increased dramatically. Any resistance? Seung-ho asked. Some grumbling from species who miss the old ways, Suran admitted. But nothing serious. Everyone remembers what happened to those who fought humanity. No one wants to risk that fate. The galaxy's new constitution was displayed on monuments throughout inhabited space. It was written in simple language that any species could understand. All sentient life has the right to exist. Genocide is forbidden. Wars of conquest are forbidden. Profiting from suffering is forbidden. Those who break these laws will be stopped by any means necessary. Those who follow these laws will be protected by the full power of humanity. Dr. Ji Young led the effort to rebuild devastated worlds. Her teams worked on former Valthran planets, helping the few survivors create new societies based on cooperation instead of conquest. The work was slow but rewarding. The Valthran survivors are adapting well, she reported from the reconstruction site on former Valthran Prime. The younger generation especially is embracing peaceful values. They seem relieved to be free from their empire's warrior culture. And the older generation? Asked Reconstruction Director Kim Min. Some resistance, but it is fading, Ji Young replied. Living under human protection has shown them that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy. Many of them are beginning to understand why their empire fell. The Valthran Empire had been built on the idea that might makes right. The strongest species deserved to rule, and the weak deserved to die. Humanity had proven that this philosophy was wrong by demonstrating superior might, and then using it to protect the weak instead of destroying them. It was a lesson that echoed throughout the galaxy. Commander Hai-In patrolled the border regions where the last Valthran holdouts hid in deep space. These were the true believers, the ones who still thought their empire's values were correct. They launched occasional raids on civilian targets, hoping to restart the war that humanity had ended. Contact, reported Sensor Officer Lee Jun. Valthran, raider attacking a Keth transport. Response time? Hay-In asked. 2 minutes at maximum acceleration. Do it. The human patrol ship reached the battle just as the Valthran raider was preparing to destroy the defenseless transport. The enemy vessel was old and damaged, crewed by fanatics who preferred death. To surrender. They got their wish. Transport is safe, reported Weapons Officer Parkso. Raider destroyed. No survivors. Hay-In nodded grimly. She took no pleasure in killing, but some enemies could not be reasoned with or reformed. The galaxy needed to remember that those who chose genocide would face extinction in return. The memorial beacons helped with that lesson. Placed throughout former Valthran space, they broadcast the same message in every known language. Here died a civilization that chose murder over mercy. Remember their fate and choose wisely. Admiral Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of humanity's new capital ship, the promise kept. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see peaceful trade routes stretching across the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species moved freely, carrying goods and passengers between worlds that had been at war just months before. Any regrets? Asked Dr. Subin, joining him at the window. Hyun-woo considered the question carefully. About the war? No. We warned them. We gave them every chance to choose peace. They chose genocide instead. But I regret that it was necessary. 30 years we spent trying to teach this galaxy to be better. 30 years of showing mercy, offering guidance, preventing wars. In the end, they only learned to respect strength. Subin nodded. Perhaps their children will be wiser. Perhaps, Hyun-woo agreed. The new educational programs are promising. Teaching young aliens about cooperation instead of competition, protection instead of domination. It will take generations, but change is possible. Through the viewports, they could see one of the new schools in action. A mixed class of young aliens, Keth, Althari, Luminary, and even some Valthran survivors, learned together about galactic history, scientific cooperation, and peaceful conflict resolution. The curriculum was carefully designed. Students learned about the old galaxy's endless wars, the Galactic Council's failures, and humanity's rise to power. But they also learned about second chances, redemption, and the possibility of building something better. President In-sung received the final reports from the transition teams. Every major system in the galaxy was now under human oversight. Every species had accepted the new order, either willingly or through force. The last holdouts had been eliminated or captured. Status of the War Crimes Tribunals? He asked Justice Minister Woo Sung. Complete, came the reply. All surviving leaders who voted for genocide have been tried and sentenced. Most received exile to prison worlds. A few were executed for particularly heinous crimes. And the Galactic Council building, converted to a museum, reported Cultural Minister Hae-young. Visitors can see where the old order made its final, fatal decision. The exhibits are quite educational. The museum was popular with tourists from across the galaxy. They came to see the chamber where thousands of representatives had voted to allow genocide, and to understand how such a decision had led to the complete transformation of galactic civilization. The most visited exhibit was a simple holographic display showing Admiral Hyun-woo's final warning to the Council. You wanted to see what humanity looks like without restraint. You refused our mercy and called it weakness. You ignored our warnings and called them empty threats. Now you will learn the difference between humans who choose to be gentle and humans who choose to be terrible. Below the display, a plaque carried a simple message. They were warned. As the first anniversary of the war approached, the galaxy prepared for a day of remembrance, not to celebrate human victory, but to honor the dead and remember the lessons learned. On that day, every human ship in the galaxy would fire a single shot into empty space, a reminder that humanity's weapons still existed, still functioned, and would be used again if necessary. The galaxy had learned to fear that sound, But more importantly, they had learned to respect it. The old galaxy was gone, destroyed by its own choices and replaced by something better. The new galaxy was peaceful, just, and protected by the overwhelming power of a species that had tried, for 30 years, to avoid using that power. Humanity had kept their promise. They had shown the galaxy what they looked like without restraint. The galaxy would never forget that lesson, and as long as they remembered, there would never be another genocide.